What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another J-drama score reaction. We're going to listen to a tune from a show I haven't yet reacted to. This is a bit of an older show. I think it's from 2011. Let me see if that shows it here. It doesn't show it here, but I will look it up and put it in the comments. Yeah, we're listening to a tune from a show called Undercover Agent Tokage. Now, I discovered this show because the main actor, Shota Matsuda, he is an actor in one of the very first J-dramas I saw, Hanayori. He plays one of the Flower 4 or F4. These like really wealthy and kind of like elite kids who dominate this private high school, and eventually, you know, this female student comes in and it sort of shakes up the dynamic. A lot of hijinks, but also romance. Anyway, he's one of the main characters. I enjoyed his acting, even though he's like a secondary character in terms of the main storyline. Regardless, I started looking for other shows that he was in. This one came across my radar. I was intrigued by it. And essentially, Tokage, it means lizard. So essentially, he's called Undercover Agent Lizard. But basically, to give a quick synopsis, he's a detective and he sort of consults with the police. I think he's officially part of the police, but he's sort of like used for special sorts of cases. Actually, that's not true. I think he is sort of like a private investigator that is hired in certain circumstances to get at the truth of something. Yeah, that's what it is. Basically, he's not working with the police, and that's like part of the controversy now that I'm remembering. Bottom line, he's very good at what he does, and he's good at infiltrating, not only going undercover, but literally like physically infiltrate, like going through like a small shaft that no one would expect someone to fit through, and then that's how he gets inside the building to then, plant surveillance like cameras or recording equipment so that he can get the evidence he needs to get at the truth of what's happened. But again, also, going undercover, like making people think that he's someone he's not. And you eventually learn that he was trained to have these observational skills and to be really good at sort of seeing things and detecting by his dad. And his dad was a detective. And ultimately you learn that he died in an incident. And it's, the whole show you're kind of like learning more and more about what happened. And ultimately, he comes to have an assistant, this young, sort of fresh out of the academy woman who, in many respects, is naive, kind of, and makes mistakes. But she has an emotional intelligence that maybe he doesn't. And so there are times where she ends up helping get at the truth of a case in a way that he might not have been able to do, even though when it comes to the other side of things, infiltrating and being discreet and not giving away your identity and whatever, again, she's prone to error and he keeps having to correct her and so on. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between them. And the more the show goes on, it's sort of like maybe are they going to have a bit of a romance, but not to really spoil anything, but over the long run they don't really go down that path. But bottom line, it's a really compelling show. And you can tell it's shot on a smaller budget than some other shows, because when they do like action and whatever, when he's sort of like, again, infiltrating a building, it's a bit more, it's shot tight, so there's not like huge, like expansive cinematography and so on. It's a bit more of like a small show, but it's really well done, and the emotional content becomes particularly impressive. And there are many scenes where the main character is flashing back to his dad, either teaching him lessons or just kind of like enjoying, like spending time with him when he was a kid. And in those moments, it's, he's thinking very fondly often. And this piece of music from the soundtrack plays. It's called Nostalgia. So of course it really fits with that dynamic. It is played at a couple other moments, and there's one moment where the female character, part of the reason she wants to join this detective agency is because she wants to find out what happened to her ex-boyfriend, who like suddenly just disappeared one day. And the guy, her partner now, even says, maybe he just left, whatever. She's like, fine, but I just want to know what happened. And she eventually uses the skills that she picks up from her partner and figures out what happens to him, tracks him down, and sort of confronts him. And eventually he just says to her, I wasn't feeling it anymore, and I guess I didn't have the guts to sort of officially end it, so I just sort of slipped out of your life and whatever. And it's sort of this deflating kind of, she thought maybe he had to leave, or, maybe it wasn't as sort of bad as it seemed, but it is just, no, I just lost interest in you and that's it. And it's this really deflating thing. And the male detective, Tokage, he sort of picks up on that. he says, you know what? And he rides a motorcycle, and he's like, you know what? I never do this. I never let any, because that's kind of a running thing, that she wants to ride on his motorcycle. No, I don't let anyone ride on my motorcycle. And he lets her ride on it that day, and she's like crying on the back, and this is playing when it's happening. So it's a real kind of like good use of this music, even though the nostalgia name in that case is perhaps a little less like relevant. But yeah, it's a tune that's used at like emotional and sensitive moments. So let's get to it. This is from the show Undercover Agent Tokage, the official soundtrack. The tune is called Nostalgia. Let me just look. Whoops. Let me just look really quickly. This was composed by. Do I have it here? No, I'm not seeing it. Oh no, here it is. Okay, so the composer is it's Hideakira Kimura, or Kimura Hideakira, the same composer who did the Ouroboros soundtrack, which I'm now very excited to see. I didn't even realize. The music director is Mitsuo Iwasaki, right? Mitsuo Iwasaki. So yeah, the music director and composer are different in this case. But in any case, the composer is Hideakira Kimura, or Kimura Hideakira, as I've been saying. Again, it depends on which name convention you go for. Regardless, this is, as I said, Nostalgia from the show Undercover Agent Tokage. Does it show the year here? Oh, 2013, so almost a decade ago, 2013. I think it's two acoustic guitars, right? Very sweet and emotional, but there's a bittersweetness to it too. Or at least like a sadness to it. Love it. I was thinking when I was listening to that, like it's most prominently used in those flashbacks where he's thinking of his late father. But I gotta say, that scene where she's really upset and he sort of picks up on it and they go on the motorcycle ride, which he then kind of frames as like, hey, don't just be sad, we're here to work, like whatever, and he kind of like gets her to stop thinking about it. It's a really sweet scene, it's really well performed, and I think the music perhaps works better in that scene than in any other scene. It's really well done. So anyway, shout out to the show, Undercover Agent Tokage. Yeah, let me know what you think of the tune.